Welcome back to another edition of Force Friday, where we talk about Star Wars theories, characters, concepts, comparisons, analyzations, collectibles, and more. And today we're going to be talking about the Imperial ranking of both officers and the badges that are supposed to reflect that. Now, I know that sounds dry, and it is, but I'm here to make a larger point. And spoilers, I'll just get it out of the way so that you're not mad at me at the end. There isn't really one. It doesn't really work. It doesn't make any sense, and it never really has made any sense. There, I just saved you about 10 minutes. So go ahead, see your way out. If you wouldn't mind, click the little ad spot on the way out. I'm sure you're busy. Look, dude, we got busy lives, man. I get it. Your time is valuable. I understand. Don't worry about me. I'm just going to spend the next 4 hours working on this video that you're not going to watch. It's cool, bro. It's cool. All's forgiven. But we do have some interesting things to talk about. So, rank badges on Imperial military personnel have become a staple of the Empire. They first appeared in A New Hope, all the way back in 1977. They consisted of a chrome metal plaque with 1 or 2 rows of translucent colored squares on its surface, usually in blue, gray, red, or gold. They continue to appear in the rest of the original trilogy and in Revenge of the Sith, where we see Republic officers and even high-ranking clone troopers wearing them. Like most of the props and elements created for the original film, the rank plaques were made to be simple, cheap, and easily reusable. A rank system has since been identified and made canon. For example, the specific badge of Tarkin denotes Grand Moff. However, during production, no ranking system was ever devised or thought out to any real degree. The idea was basically that the more important you are, the more squares and colors you get. It's like finding out who the poor kid was in elementary school. When you open up your pack of 8 crayons and then that other kid had 12, but then the one kid down at the end had 64 crayons, he was the rich kid, that's the Grand Moff. That's how they rolled. This isn't a movie that they thought was going to be super successful. It's not a movie that they thought that nerds would scrutinize 30 years later and try to make sense of something that was never meant to be sensical. It was only meant to be suggestive and to kind of paint a picture of a larger world. Now, in the universe, the badges are designed to be easily seen and understood even from a distance and could be automatically scanned for certain Imperial machines to allow access to restricted areas. Like the simplistic graphics used for A New Hope, the idea is that the Empire designs information to be as quickly and simply disseminated as possible. Stuff like this is one of the numerous examples of the limited budget or technology of the time of the original production becoming an integral part of the look and feel of the Star Wars universe, something that's replicated years and years later with all the money in the world being thrown at it from every angle. Now, the truth is that these insignia and these rankings are entirely inconsistent. I had a friend of mine that once decided one of the contributing factors to why he didn't like Rogue One was that he didn't understand the ranking system in regard to Grand Moff versus Director versus Moff versus Captain, etc., that it didn't seem to make any sense. And if that's the way he felt, he's right for feeling that way. But the truth is that it was never consistent or sensical in the first place. I think a lot of us as kids watch these movies with a different lens, and then as adults, we want them to make more sense than they're supposed to. But movie to movie, these ranks are really inconsistent. And we're going to get back to that. But lore-wise, the most concrete and official version is the master sheet created by costume designers Glenn Dillon and David Crossman in 2015 for the production of Rogue One, which is ironic because that's when it kind of irritated my buddy, and that's also the first time it was meant to take place in a real world with a real ranking system that made sense. It keeps what continuity it can with A New Hope and outlines a clear and consistent rank structure. The system was used again for Solo and will probably become the master list for this kind of thing in any future content featuring the Empire. Because at this point, there are people that are kind of keeping track of all of the odds and ends and trying to make it as consistent as possible. But there's no way that they can go back in time and fix those inconsistencies since 1977. Another version was published in 2012's The Essential Guide to Warfare book and tries to combine legends and film material into a definitive list. By the time Empire Strikes Back began production, the budget had increased dramatically, mainly due to the fact that Lucas funded the film himself. The badges of this film are not random and inconsistent like A New Hope. A rank system was specifically designed and thought out. For example, check the scene where Darth Vader speaks to the Star Destroyer captains via hologram. All 3 have the exact same rank plaques. Compare this to A New Hope, where personnel in the same black uniform all wore different plaques. These mistakes have since been explained away by different interpretations of lore. In-universe, the destruction of the first Death Star was a catastrophic loss for the Empire, and as more and more systems flocked to the rebellion, they were forced to diversify the forces they had, and a new ranking system was devised. In other words, that's why officers of the same rank have different plaques in Empire when compared to A New Hope. Similarly, the inconsistencies in A New Hope have been chalked up to different branches of the Imperial military, using slightly different rank denotations. For example, Navy officers like Admiral Mahdi use a different rank system to Imperial Security Bureau officers like Colonel Yolerin, the same colonel seen in Clone Wars and Rebels. In typical Star Wars fashion, the consistent rank structure used in Empire was utterly screwed up by Return of the Jedi. A costuming error meant that every single rank plaque in the film is a commander, not just for the standard background officers, but even for Moff Jerjerrod and the returning Admiral Piet. As far as I can tell, there is no real in-universe explanation for this, or at least, if there is one, I haven't found it. But I have a bit of an explanation. Are you ready? So here's how I see it. All of these guys are coming to work, right? And you know how it is in Empire. This dude in the cape and all that, he's killing guys left and right for some huge infractions and some relatively small infractions. But this dude is axing people for making mistakes. But the way that this Navy force is working, and they're trying to scramble to make sure that they can really defeat the rebels this time, they got guys coming from different branches that have never served on this particular Star Destroyer or that particular Star Destroyer. They're moving their stuff, right? And they got to be accountable for all of that. It's a military organization after all. Uniforms, making sure that it's pressed and cleaned and all that stuff, and you package it up and you put it in a tote or something, and you're carrying the tote from station to station in an attempt to be perfect for ultimately a commanding officer that will take your head off just as soon as look at you. And you get on to the Star Destroyer that you're stationed on. You open up your stuff. You're getting yourself storage. You got a little gear locker. You put a little picture of your wife and kids in there, and a little keepsake. Maybe somebody that you were in the Imperial Academy with, just palling around. You get your boots all shined up. You make sure that the pants that look like you should be riding a horse are in order. And you look down, you have your dental floss, you have your personal hygiene products, you brought soap. You can't trust what the Empire is going to provide. They're cutting corners every chance they get, and the union isn't worth a equal work for equal pay. Tell it to the last couple guys that got choked through the force. So what do? You make an effort to make sure that everything is picture perfect to make your stay on this Star Destroyer as stress-free as possible. And you look into your case and you forgot your badges for your chest. You're screwed. You're not getting out of this alive. Vader's 100% gonna notice, and he's 100% gonna take your head off. You were assigned this. This isn't your property. This is property of the Empire, and you'll be expected to return it the day that you retire. You don't own this, but you have to be accountable for it, and now you don't have any pins, so what do? Well, if you're a guy like me, when I went through high school, you go to the kid that was responsible, and you say, hey man, you got last night's homework? Or in other words, hey, you got any extra badges? I left mine back at Hoth or whatever. And that guy, he got tons of stuff. He's squared away. He's the officer that you'll never be. He's going to get promoted. You guys were in the same class together, but he's going to get promoted 10 times before you ever get the chance or opportunity to. And he deserves it. You're not putting forth the effort. You can't even keep track of your pins. So, in typical fashion, you got a bell curve of excellence, right? Some guys are going to be performing in the upper bracket, some guys in the lower bracket, but the wide swath are going to be average guys trying to make their way in the universe. And these average guys have a hard time keeping track of their ranking insignias. So, you got a whole bunch of guys wearing the ranking insignia of the one responsible guy that decided to bring it. I don't know, man. That's all I got. Works for me. But anyway, the Essential Guide to Warfare does apparently account for some of this, but only partially. There's just no easy way to explain why an admiral like Piet has the same rank badge as the random British extra in the background of an Imperial scene. And it might be better leaving it that way. Unless you want to go with my over-explained and thought out and ridiculous bell curve theory, which is fine too. That's what I'm going with. But not everything can be explained through lore. Sometimes mistakes happen, and sometimes mistakes will always be just mistakes. Now, in 1990's Heir to the Empire, we are introduced to the Grand Admiral rank through Thrawn. The design has stayed consistent and made the jump to canon in Star Wars Rebels. For the most part, the prequel films, while messing up a ton of other things, don't feature the Imperial rank plaques. That is until Revenge of the Sith. So it doesn't really have the opportunity to make a ton of mistakes in this regard. The film intentionally shifted towards the design aesthetic of the original trilogy, and one of the many ways it did was through bringing back the old rank insignias.
Commander Cody actually bears a similar design on his armor, and all the Navy personnel we see in the film, particularly at the end aboard the Venator Star Destroyer, have the classic ranking. We don't really get the origins of the ranking system until 2008's Clone Wars, where we're showed that the Imperial system was first used in the Republic military. Returning characters who had a lesser rank, like Yularen or Tarkin, had lesser badges, and Cody again bore the same plaque on his Phase 2 armor, although he is the only clone trooper, commander, or otherwise to do so. Now, there's a lot of information in that, and all of it is valid, but the truth is that Star Wars is not Star Trek. It's never going to be, it's not trying to be, and it's not meant to be. Star Wars is Star Wars, and they're expecting that while you're there, the purpose and reasoning for enjoying the films will have nothing to do with the ranking, whether it be consistent or inconsistent, of Imperial officers either walking the bridge or shuffling away in the background, perhaps carrying off a corpse. These movies are inherently detail flawed. They're not about the details. They're about hope, they're about redemption, and they're about family. Everything else will always take a back seat. I want to take a minute and say special thanks to the Force Sensitive and Rule of 3 guys behind the scenes who helped me with a lot of the information here. And as for you guys, I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're staying sane. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.